Recorded live in Balcatta, Western Australia, the Hoon capital of the world, this is Talkin' Power.
Gap is what happens when you hold to the floor and crush the man next to you. There's space in between your back bumper and your front bumper. We, in the South, we refer to it as the gap band.
Well, I think, Formula One is for grown-ups.
So, what about the sideways? You've got a race in your own lane. Now he's on the grass, he brings it back. Oh, some great driving there.
Torque and Power, your motoring and motorsport podcast.
All right, welcome to the Talk and Power podcast, episode 30. We have rushed in an emergency podcast. I'm with co-host Simon Gonzo Travellini. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. Yourself?
Oh, I'm very good, actually. Very good.
Is it actually 30 or is it 29 and a half?
Oh, we'll call it 30.
We'll call it 30?
We'll call it 30. Yeah, it's going to be probably a full episode, if
Mate,
not longer.
We had no choice but to do this because it was arguably one of the biggest weekends in terms of motorsport and controversy that I can remember.
Yep.
So we had the V8s at Barbagallo, our home
correct.
track. We had the MotoGP and the 400 Thunder.
Yep.
Right?
And lots have happened at all of those events.
Mate, huge. So we'll kick off with the Barbagallo. You were down there. You were our man on the scene.
I was on the scene, yeah. Scotty McLaughlin, he couldn't, he wasn't happy with the qualifying event of Saturday, where he qualified first and won the race on Saturday. So he decided Sunday's race, hey, let's just start from 19th.
19th spot.
19th and still won. So the DJR Penske obviously tuned quite well for Wanneroo, no doubt about it.
What an incredible run.
It was, yeah. It was an incredible run, and fitting that we had another Ford victory there. We're starting to get some domination back at Barbagallo Raceway.
Incredible. I also noticed on Saturday, Mark Winterbottom.
Yeah, great drive to second spot.
Incredible drive. Totally different pit strategy that was basically heckled by the commentary box. And to see him just turn it around, they really didn't have anything to say towards the end there.
No, it was an incredible turnaround for Frosty as well, and it was good to see the FPR, well, sorry, I keep calling them FPR, but the PRA cars back in a winning position. Chaz Mostert's race probably taken away from him on the Saturday with Whincup bumping him on the entry to the pit lane there.
Yep, spinning
problematic off. that pit lane entry.
What's your opinion about the way they were tackling the speed hump there?
Look, I was going to bring that up, actually. That's over the years, I've noticed them get further and further out on that speed hump on the other side of it, practically. They're closer to Wanneroo Road than the actual speed hump these days.
They're closer to the old pit entry than... In fact, I thought they're all going to pit or something. Yeah,
it's a bit ridiculous now. And I've noticed over the years they've gradually gone over and over to the left, to the left, to the left. It was ridiculous on Saturday.
There was a series of warnings given. Now, what the actual warnings were about, from what I can understand, is the people who are actually going around and avoiding the speed hump altogether.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah,
right. So they were forced to drive over the speed hump.
Yeah.
Now it seems a little bit ridiculous, doesn't it? I mean, shouldn't they do something about that? Because it hardly seems safe or good for the cars.
No. And you saw the cars bottoming out on that speed hump on irregular occasions, and it bewildered me as to why they continue to do that. And, Jack Perkins had some commentary about it as well. Unfortunately, Jack, I don't think it's possible closing that pit entry off because I think it's still used. I know the go-kart people still use that entry.
Well, whenever, there's any training events and so on and so forth, that is how we get onto the track, and that's how we get off of the track.
Yeah, it's done on that side, so that's not a possibility. But I'm sure, look, the people at the WA Sporting Car Club will work something out. But the speed hump is in the wrong. Obviously, nowadays it's in the wrong spot. But I don't understand why those guys,
have to go so wide.
Yeah,
I got the impression that they try and take a tight line early on when the tyres are fresh, and then it just washes out. But I actually saw a couple of people overtake there by taking the tight line. So, you'd have to argue that the tight line is a plausible line.
Yeah, it is, definitely. Yeah. And I think there's probably better... Arguably, it's... With the abrasion of Wanneroo, there is a bit of build-up of marbles in there. But
it looked ridiculous. The whole over the track, it looked ridiculous.
Yeah, built up by
it looked like there was a tyre recycling factory somewhere in the area because I couldn't believe it. There was steel belt and everything going.
Yeah. It's quite an aggressive track. But, you know, I even saw David Reynolds pass on the outside of Turn 1, and I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I actually can't remember the last time I saw that there. Yeah. So it's really good to see, and it was a good outcome. Stadium Trucks put on a bit of a show. Had the Bachelor from the US win a race as well.
Excellent.
Ari Leindyke Jr. So there you go for all the female listeners.
So
if you didn't get to Barbagallo, you missed out on meeting the Bachelor from the US edition. He's the current Bachelor at the moment.
Excellent. That's great. Thanks for sharing that with us, Nick. Interesting that you would take note of something like that.
I have felt that the promotions team at V8 Supercars might have worked on that one a little bit better because I thought it was a bit of a good marketing ploy for them. But anyway,
so crowd numbers, Nick,
probably down. I don't have the official numbers, but to me they look down. I've gone every year and it looks down to me.
Supercar blamed it on the economy.
No, I don't think they've said anything at all. I just think it was down. The Saturday
Suburbia
race
encroaching on Wanneroo Raceway. No, didn't blame it on that.
No,
economy.
No, I don't think so.
Local Labor government.
I just think it was probably the Saturday we conflicted with an Eagles versus Port Adelaide game, which I think would have attracted a few people.
Right.
And the Sunday, I really don't know, but I think the weather may have put a few people off as well.
Wasn't that it's a shit show? No,
I don't think so. But yeah, there'll be a lot of people that tell you it is not the best show, but. Nonetheless, I still enjoy it.
I got to know, Nick, were the diesel trucks there?
No, they weren't. Thank God.
So we can't get a time for the Camry.
No. Thank God for that.
Devastated. I was really keen on running it on LPG.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Camry on LPG versus, what is it, Mitsubishi Triton?
Yeah, Triton, yeah.
Yeah, it should be about the same.
A big shout-out also to Alex Rouleau as well for winning the Super 2s race as well. Yeah, in the feeder group. So that was good to see Alex make a comeback to some form of V8 supercar. So it was really good to see him there.
So the general atmosphere down there?
That was quite good, actually. Yeah, it was quite good. I got in and out, no problem at all. So it's always good. My apologies. That's my phone.
So Nick doing his usual professional thing. I better put mine on silent as well, or else I'm going to get called out. Oh, it is on silent. All right, so moving on.
Yeah.
MotoGP.
I mean, I was watching that with you, watching that as well, and I was excited. I actually made a few notes here. Carl Crutchlow on pole. That was good to see Carl out there. I mean, unfortunately, he went down.
The thing that was really impressive about that is that he's on one of the satellite Yamaha teams, and he outperformed by a country mile.
Yep.
The factory team. So, interesting.
I could be incorrect, but something tells me that the Rossi and Vinales are still on last year's Yamaha. I could be wrong.
There was some discussion about the electronics, and so apparently, I mean, that track is a very tight cornering track.
Yep.
Right? And what I saw a lot of during the race and even qualifying is a lot of tyre smoke.
Heaps.
Yeah, so there was a lot of talk about the power delivery and the Yamaha team struggling to get the software to do what they want it to do. Which, to me, it's a little bit sad that this is where motorsport has ended up because, I've always loved the purity of motorcycle racing in the rider. I mean, there's very little, if any, telemetry in terms of from the crew back to the rider. There's no headsets. There was something last season. They had some flashing lights on the dash, but I don't even know. I mean, those guys, I don't think, get the opportunity to really look at the dash.
Yep.
Other than the shift light, possibly. But a bit sad that that's what it's come down to. That that they're basically relying on the software to get the traction, to get the bike to, not destroy the rear tyre and so on. So, I believe that they were struggling a little bit with that. It was interesting to note a few things that were going on there. Firstly, the tyre selection, you know, was, I mean, generally most of the teams went with a harder tyre, except for, God, I've forgotten his name now.
Jorge Lorenzo.
Lorenzo.
Yeah, he went with a soft. I was going to bring that up. Why do you think they went for a softer on the front with him?
I would imagine that he thought that he was going to get some early pace and try and put the gap on, which, you know, I think that if Marquez had have gotten held up in traffic, then, you know, that strategy may have worked, but it was a risky one. But, I mean, at the end of the day, he got out in front.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
You know, Carl Crutchlow got a shocking start. That was terrible.
Yep.
And Jorge got out there. George, so I prefer to call him.
Yep,
George got out there, got out in front. But, you know, that tyre was going to go off sooner or later. It was going to happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, before we got to see that really play out, we had a bit of a three-way collision there, which for me, I mean, you know, I was close to just turning the TV off and going to bed.
Really. It was disappointing. It was a disappointing outcome.
I don't know that anyone would have caught Marquez. I think Marquez really rode a very tight race, and I think that he basically, you know, like he rode a very mature race. He paced himself, got out in front, and just went, you know, as fast as he needed to. And it was interesting that when the three came together, all of a sudden, the you know, people in fourth, fifth, sixth, and so on. Well, it was fifth, sixth, and seventh, I think.
Yep.
Possibly even eighth. Suddenly found pace.
Lifted, yeah.
Yeah. In particular, Rossi, who set the quickest laps of the race in the closing stages, which, you know, you think, why didn't you do that in the beginning of the race?
Yeah.
But anyway, it really changed the championship now.
Yeah.
Marquez has got a big lead. And, you know, unfortunately for Dovizioso, I mean, Dovizioso, I think, was in there with a chance. What I'm seeing unfold there is George.
Yep.
Right, he is the number one rider for Ducati. But last season, he got made, you know, look pretty bad.
Yeah, he looked pretty ordinary last year.
By the number two rider.
Yep.
And even the beginning of this season, Dovi's really, you know, he's been right there. So I think that being it was a Spanish race, that he really wanted to show Ducati that he had it in him to.
Yeah.
You know, and there's going to be some big changes this season. There's a lot of people switching to KTM. I think that Red Bull made the wrong decision sponsoring KTM. They really should have sponsored Ducati, because clearly they're following the same form as the Formula One team. And, you know, that's not a good thing, because we want to see Dan win and we want to see Dovi win.
Yeah.
So it's a bit sad that, you know, in the space of a week, we've seen two guys that we cheer for, you know, week to week, both get tangled with their teammates.
Yeah.
But, you know, look, I think it was a bit of an unfortunate incident there. Pedrosa, you know, saw the opening, went for it. You know, Jorge cut across, collided, and Dovi was on the outside. But I guess people would argue that if he didn't go in hot, he wouldn't have found himself on the outside either.
Right,
so, you know, it's one of those things. I guess for him, it would have been frustrating. If I was in Dovizioso's shoes, I would have been feeling very frustrated that, you know, he was tangled fighting it out with his teammate.
Yeah, and it is frustrating. He's on a different tyre strategy as well, Jorge, and there was no doubt that his tyre was fading away, the front tyre.
Yeah, it was never going to see race distance.
He should be letting him go by. And that's where the team needs to step in. As we had this happen last year as well. The team needs to step in.
But, you know, what are you going to do? I mean, think about Ducati. Think about, like, the team and how much money they spent to get Lorenzo over there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I guess for them to step in and say, well, listen, buddy, you know, you're going to have to let Dovi get through, it's kind of like admitting defeat.
Oh, yeah, no doubt.
You know what I mean? I'm not sure the exact figures, but I believe that Jorge was on 12 or 14 million euro.
Yeah.
And Dovi's on 2. So, you know, anyway, nonetheless, it's had a big impact on the outcome.
Yep.
And, you know, we'll just have to wait and see. I reckon the tensions would be pretty...
Well, I've just opened up the championship as it stands now with that race being completed. So Marquez is ahead on 70 points. Johan Zarco slots into second now. He's 12 points down.
Well, Zarco came in second. That was the final results, wasn't it?
Yeah. And Vinales, Maverick, that is, he's in 50 points. Iannone on 47 and Andre Dovizioso on 46. So, sorry. Yeah, Johan Zarco came second. Iannone third. Petrucci fourth. Valentino Rossi fifth.
Yeah.
Jack Miller sixth.
Yeah.
Great ride.
Yeah, great ride for Jack. So I believe Jack is moving to KTM.
No, Johan is going to this KTM. That is confirmed. Zarco is off going to KTM.
And Miller, no confirmation on where he's... No. So there was talk. One of them got offered the Honda deal and basically told Honda, I do not want to be in the same team as Marc Marquez.
Yep.
So
that's...
No love lost there.
So, yeah, fair. Look, I mean, it's still early in the season. Dovey can come back from that. There's no problem there. I don't think there's any issues. You know, clearly there's still a fair bit to play out.
Yeah, but you know what, Nick? When you have stuff like that, I mean, the last thing you want to be doing when you're riding is looking over your shoulder for your teammate.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No
Like,
doubt.
you want to know that your teammate's there to back you up. And it's not the case in Red Bull now. We've seen that. And it's definitely not the case over there at Ducati.
No.
So let's hope they get it resolved because, you know, last season he missed out on the championship by, you know, nothing really.
Yeah,
it was only a handful of points. And it's sad to think that he's going to lose that momentum, you know. So anyway, now... The elephant in the room.
The elephant in the room. Before we get to the elephant in the room, I want to talk about something that's probably more important than the elephant in the room, and I don't want to be seen as being this is a negative. The elephant in the room is probably arguably a bit negative, but I want to start off with a big positive. I'm going to say a few names. Kelly Betts, Leah Pritchard, Courtney Force. There's two things they have in common, those three women. They're all women. Thanks.
Nice observation.
And they all had wins on the weekend. So Leah Pritchard in Top Fuel, okay, at the NHRA Southern Nationals. Courtney Force in Funny Car, same event. And Kelly Betts up against Rochelle Splatt.
Yeah, I know.
Top Fuel, it was an all-woman final.
I know. First time in Australian history.
Yeah, and I think that's something to be really proud of.
Probably first time in drag racing history, hey? For Top Fuel?
No, I think Shirley Muldowney came up against a lady of Hawaiian descent. Her name escapes me. I think Lee. Her surname was Lee in the 70s. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
But huge. Kelly Betts, that's, 2 wins this season?
Yeah, it is. Now, she actually leads the championship now, Kelly.
Yep.
So it was a bit of a tyre-smoking affair, the final. But, look, hats off. And that's what I said. We don't want to be talk about the negatives. I think that's a huge thing that's happened over the weekend in drag racing worldwide, where we've had females completely dominate the top tier of our sport.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And that's, well, look, we've said it before, that drag racing is definitely 100% the most anti-sexist sport of all sports. Because we have men and women competing against each other, and we've had quite a few female champions over the years.
Yep.
And there you go. The weekend, it was in the Nitro categories, it was an all-female affair worldwide.
Yep. So there you go. But all right, I know you want to talk about the elephant in the room.
I know. Look, I just want to have a shout out too for Zabiris.
Yeah.
A tragic accident. It shows you how violent these cars can be, because the accident didn't really look that bad, but because they accelerate so fast, and the way the impact, the car rolled over and hit the wall.
Yep.
Unfortunately fractured his spine, so he's going to be out for a while. Those guys have done a magnificent job, in such a short space of time to get to where they are, where they're a big threat.
Yeah.
So hope he gets well soon, and hope he gets back on the track.
Yep.
As soon as possible. So, look, John Zappia, our guy, took out the event.
Yep. And he's now got the lead in the championship for ProSlammer.
I believe so. I believe he's got a narrow lead. Huge for those guys. Huge for Fennick. Sam Fennick making it to the final.
Yep.
Those guys have come a long way in a short space of time. I believe Mark Savage has been heavily involved in turning that team around. Big pat on the back to those guys, huge.
Also to Sam, I mean, he beached the car in round one quite heavily. The car went in deep into the sand, and it would have been a fair bit of work that had to be done during rounds.
Huge amount of work for him and his crew. Top effort. Those guys deserve to be in the finals. If you can get a car out of the sand and get it ready to run, that's massive. That's definitely hard work. Also, Spinozzi's getting a round win at their first event. Massive, massive. Good job. Good pat on the back to all those guys.
Yep. Tuned by a WA guy, Michael Marriott.
I'm not 100% sure. I know the press releases suggested that Marriott was going to be the crew chief. I believe that he is, but I also believe that Mark Brew is involved.
Shared effort.
Well, he's listed as the engine builder, but I thought I saw him on the start line there. Brew was the man responsible for getting Peter Kapiris into the 570s and making Kapiris a definite threat against Zappia.
Yep.
I think the championship came down to that particular year, the last event, and I think Pete just needed to make it. To first round. Unfortunately, he didn't qualify. So it was a bit of a big upset because Zapp needed to win the event, reset the national record to win by a point or something, he managed to do it. Now, interestingly enough, that particular year, it was an interesting turn of events that occurred where John Zappia was racing, and I could be wrong, but I think it was Murray O'Connor. And Murray left early. I think he may have driven through the clutch and then just decided to go for it. And Zapp went after him. And it was a bit of controversy over, who should get the win, what points, etc. Right? And it was decided that because the auto start system was being employed, that even though neither of them accepted the tree, because the tree hadn't flashed yellow yet, that because the starter had activated the auto start system, that the first or worst rule, which is basically a internationally accepted rule. So what that means for those of you that don't follow drag racing is that when there is some sort of disqualification, whether it be a red light, like taking off before the green light, basically, or crossing the centre line, or something along those lines, that the first one or the worst one will be the loser, and then the other one will be the winner. So they ruled that had to go to the tribunal because initially the powers that be at the time ruled that neither of them should get any points, right? Which has happened before, many years ago. I believe it was Victor Bray and the Dodge Daytona.
Peter Gratz.
Peter Gratz, where one of them, well, they may have both broken, or one of them crossed the centre line and the other one broke, or something along those lines, and it was ruled that neither of them won. And no one was awarded any points for that round. They were awarded points for the rounds leading up to that, but that particular round they weren't awarded any points. So in Zap's case, if he hadn't have been awarded those points, he would have lost the championship. I could be wrong, but this is my recollection. Well, on the weekend, we saw something similar happen. So in the second round, so for those of you that don't know, Thunder, or 400 Thunder, IHRA, run a different system. So traditional drag racing is an elimination system. So we start with however many cars for the field. So in the case of ProSlammer under the old Andrew system, there'd be 8 cars.
Yep.
So quite often in WA, you'd get 22 cars trying to qualify for 8 spots. If you didn't make the cut on Friday night, you weren't in the show on Saturday. So we start with 8 cars. After the first round, we have 4 losers, which go home, and the next 4 progress to second round. And then after second round, we have 2 losers, which go home, and 2 cars progress to the final, and we have the winner. That is the traditional drag racing systems, referred to as eliminations, and as we used to say, you either go hard or you go home. Simple as that. For whatever reason, the powers that be, well, I'll tell you the reason. They believe that it gives the racers better coverage and the opportunity to run more laps. It could be true. I don't know. I'm a very traditional sort of drag racer, and I believe the elimination system is still the best system. And if you've got enough, to put on a 16-car field or whatever, then that's what you should be doing. I don't know how many cars were at Sydney. I think there may have been 12, but I could be wrong.
I think there was 12,
Yeah. Nonetheless, the system that they use is a very, very complicated, actually gives me a headache thinking about it system. So basically, they run I think it's a practice. They get a practice pass or something during the day, which doesn't count for anything. I don't think it's seeding or qualifying or anything like that. Then they race the cars in the order of the points. I'm pretty sure that that's how it works for first round. So number 1 in the points would race number, I don't know, I guess number 12 in this case. Number 2 races, anyway, it's some system like that. Then they get awarded, if you win that round, you get 20 points, and if you lose, you get 5 points. And then 1 to 8 from the quickest ET to the slowest ET get 8 points for first, 7 points for second, 6 points for third, and so on down to 8th spot, which gets 1 point, right? And then second round, I think, is based off the ET in first round.
Yeah.
Anyway,
just confirming what you said. So seeding in round 1 is championship position coming into the event.
Yeah,
that's in round 1.
Yeah. So nonetheless, I think the racers like it because they're going to get 3 runs on the night in front of the crowd. Which, if you run a 2-day event, they're going to get that on the Friday night. And traditionally, the big crowd was always on the Friday night.
Yep.
And Saturday wasn't as big a crowd, which I think, personally myself, I think that system works really well because the Friday, you get all the spectators jammed in there. Everyone has a fat time, right? You got the opportunity to throw everything you've got, the kitchen sink, the whole lot at the car. And if you break it, you've got the night to work through. And many, many, many championship wins were based on that, where they broke it on Friday night, getting in the show, and then they fixed it and went on to win on Saturday.
For sure.
And it makes for a lot of excitement. It makes for a lot of atmosphere, a lot of tension in the air. And then on the Saturday, the crowd numbers are down. I'm not going to argue with that. But Saturday gives you the opportunity to get your corporate sponsors in there to watch the race. You know what I mean? So the corporate boxes and the other thing is on Saturday, the crowd a lot of the people in the crowd will generally be friends or family of the racers as well as the racers themselves. And I'll tell you what, nothing gets you more G'd up as a racer than watching, you know, top fuel or top door slammer or something like that. And if you get knocked out, if you're in Super Sedan or Super Street and you get knocked out early on Sunday or Saturday, yeah, depending on whether it's a Friday, Saturday, or Saturday, Sunday, you know, you get the opportunity to enjoy a bit of racing, you know. But anyway, whatever the system is. So, in the second round, there was a match-up between Paul Mahoyet and Andrew Searle. And watching the video, which Nick and I have watched, I don't know how many times. My eyes are square. We watched it that many times.
You can watch it again if you want. So it's on the screen right now.
Searle rolls the beam. He gets a red light. And Mahoyet takes off, crosses the centre line. Okay? Now, the commentator, he says it quite clearly that it's a red light, but the first or worst rule is going to apply here, and because Mahoyet crossed the centre line, he will be disqualified because the safety infraction is, you know, of a higher importance than the red light. Okay? Now, to me, that's obvious, right? But then suddenly, it becomes a question of, oh, hang on, the tree wasn't actually activated, right? So it wasn't a red light. I mean, technically what he did was overstage, right? That's the technical terminology for what happened there. Okay, so I've got excerpts here which Luke Newhoff posted up on Facebook. I admire him for taking his approach, because what he's done is he said, here's the information. So here's the section from the Andrew rulebook. Here's the section from the IHRA rulebook, right? So you can't really argue. They're the two sets of rules, okay? And he said, you know, make of it what you will, basically, right? Not in those exact words, but I reckon that the way he's approached it is arguably the best way to approach it. But unfortunately, for me, having watched it all, having read all the rules, I can only come to one, you know, determination, and that's that no matter how I read it, the points from that run, if you were going to award points, they have to go to Surly, right? But Thunder has decided to award the points to Mahoyet, and we've asked Thunder, we've approached Thunder for comment.
In fairness to Thunder, I put that together. I think it was roughly 12 o'clock Perth time.
Well, look, if they respond, then, you know, I think that we should do what every other media outlet does and post up their response on our website, on our Facebook page, etc. But, you know, you've got to look at this, okay, from this perspective. This is a very, very tight championship, okay? It's going to go down to the wire, right? Now, it has been a case of consistency in Zap's part, right? He's had a couple of bad races, right? But he's made it to the finals. He has been able to string together enough runs under whatever system that they're running, whether it be eliminations or this. Well, they don't call it a 3-round format. They call it something else. They call it an all run format.
Yeah, that's what it's called. All run
format, right? He's managed to figure out, you know, look, I need to do this, I need to do that, and get the car into the finals, right? Now, in this instance, okay, you know, I mean, he'd already won the race. He didn't need to push it. It wheel stood, probably shook, whatever happened. Might be a case of rear steer. Rear steer will sometimes do that because when the front wheels are in the air, the rear end, you know, doesn't, like, there's no influence over where the car's going to go. I don't know what it was, but the car crossed the centre line, right? Now, luckily, there was no collision.
Yep.
Right? Because, you know, there's always the potential for that to happen. I've been in, you know, the right lane at Sydney. Luckily, I was off the gas because I shook badly. So that could have potentially been a horrible incident. Nonetheless, it is what it is. But to award the points to Mohoyet just doesn't seem right to me. If you were going to argue that they were both serious rule infractions, right, and you were going to forget the rules altogether, then you would award neither of them points, and maybe award them 5 points each. But to give Mohoyet the win just doesn't sit well with me. I've seen arguments that suggest that because Searle rolled the beams, right, then it was a solo for Mohoyet. Well, normally, if that is the case, the starter will give you a signal.
Yeah, the solo instruction that you won.
Okay, so if we're going to break it down as clinically as that, what we need to do is we need to say to the starter, was the tree activated, right? So the starter, as far as I know, from all the bits and pieces that I've read and seen, the tree was activated. Okay, so if the tree was activated, that he didn't accept the tree, blah blah blah, all that crap doesn't play into it. As far as I'm concerned, now Andrew's done the right thing, and they've modified their rules since the incident with Zappia occurred. Okay, but it's like this: when you're in the car, you go through the hole in the wall, right? You're in the hands of the starter from that point onwards. You do your burnout, you reverse back. Okay? The starter's job, as far as I know, and, Pete, Dougie, all those guys can vie into this and argue whether I'm right or wrong. He checks that the track's clear, and he has his other guys around him. Everyone looks around, track's all good, right? And he motions the cars into stage. Okay? Yep. From that point onwards, once the cars are in stage, the race is on. So if you roll the beams or you go or whatever, you lose. No ifs or buts, right? But if a car crosses the centre line, then, the rule, the first or worst rule has to apply, and crossing the centre line is worse. Unfortunately, and this is the problem with this sport, is that we've never ever seen consistent umpiring. There seems to be one set of rules for one camp and another set of rules for another camp. So if this is going to be the case, then Thunder needs to write this up in some manner that makes some sort of sense. Something that says that, if the amber hasn't flashed, then it's deemed to be a solo or something like that.
Yeah, okay.
And then, if it happens again, it's going to be there.
But then as someone's pointed out already, then this becomes I don't think we can go down that path. I don't think we can start saying if the amber hasn't flashed, then it's deemed a solo, because we're still rewarding someone for crossing the centre line when it's not safe to do so.
No, it's definitely not safe.
This is, to me, in my mind, more of a safety thing, more about the points. The points, I think, that could become problematic at the next event, but let's forget the points. Let's talk about the safety side of this.
Well, I mean, I guess that's between Thunder, IHRA, and their insurance company.
I want to stress, however, at this point, we haven't had a response from the 400 Thunder, but I don't think they've had adequate time to do so as well.
Oh, look, they had enough time to make a decision on the night, as far as I'm concerned. It was to me, it was a no-brainer. You award the win to Searle, and that's it. Move on. But they chose to take a very, very, very unorthodox road with this, and I doubt that there is a meeting director on the planet that would have gone with their decision. It's a bit sad this sort of thing happens. I think that the rule's pretty simple, first or worst.
Yep.
I believe that some governing bodies have actually gone to the trouble of listing the order of severity.
Yeah, that's correct.
Just so that there's no question about which is worse. And I've read through them, and in every case, crossing the centre line is deemed to be worse than anything else you can do. Anyway, I mean, it really, for me, it marred a big comeback from Zappia. Huge event. Those guys just, every run, he pedalled the car 2 or 3 times and still managed to run at 70, In the practice run, ran a 60. I mean, those guys are on fire. They're on fire.
Yep. Look, we wish John Zapier and all the participants in the ProSlammer series and all 400th series the best for the. There's one round left in the series. They go to Willowbank
for the Winter Nationals.
That is correct. So we'll be looking forward to seeing that. All right, well, that brings this special podcast to a close. Episode 30, bit of a milestone one.
It is, actually. You know what? It is.
It is, yeah. So, look, I mean, thanks for listening in. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to our sponsors as well. They're helping us out with the XY build. We're getting some good commentary there. So they are WA Suspensions, All Fast Torque Converters, Monster Torque, and
Transmission Specialty.
Sorry.
Yeah, Ken Kelly and the boys there for helping us out with some trans bits.
Tappers Race Pipes as well, helping us out.
And
CRD Nitrous as well.
Nitrous,
Yep.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
Yep.
It's been
a long day.
We need to organise to get some work done on that car because the season is fast approaching. We also need to get the engine, the new engine ready for the Camry.
Yep. All right, Simon, thanks for coming in. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for having us, Nick.
All right. See you later.
See you, mate. Bye.
Talk and Power stresses all characters and events on this podcast, even those based on real people, are entirely fictional. All celebrity voices are impersonated poorly. We do not encourage street racing or the use of turbochargers.